Good evening, each one. Good to see you tonight. Thank you for being here. Have some that were out recently because of sickness that are back with us, and perhaps others who are not here because of that. Okay. So, in Lesson 9, Raising Teenagers in the Way of God, got a couple questions left that we want to cover before we move on to the next lesson. If you want to have your Bibles open to Ephesians 6 and Colossians 3, that would be good. Ephesians 6 and Colossians chapter 3. So in Ephesians chapter 6 and in verse 4, Paul says, "And you fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath, but bring them up in the training and admonition of the Lord." And in a parallel text of Colossians chapter 3, and in verse 21, "Fathers, do not provoke your children, lest they become discouraged." Two verses with parenting and specifically directed at fathers not to provoke their children. In the Ephesians text, it says, "Don't provoke them to wrath." And in the Colossians text, "Don't provoke them lest they become discouraged or disheartened." And this question, we're delving in a little bit more. We touched on this previously, but why is commendation so important to children? And I'm not talking about commendation necessarily for the sake of commendation. I'm not talking about false and empty words, but genuine commendation. Why is that important to children and to our relationship with them as well? Any thoughts on that, Ken?
To encourage them and to, you might say, build their self-esteem.
Okay.
Self-confidence.
To encourage them, to help build their self-esteem and their self-confidence. Melissa?
What goes in comes out. It's always negative that you put in, negatives come from that.
Okay. So what are we filling their little minds with? And from a young age and until, of course, this lesson's focused on teenagers. And obviously there's there's unique challenges and struggles when you get to those teenage years that young men and young ladies are going through. And if what we're putting in is a bunch of negative, then we shouldn't be surprised if that's what comes out, right? And I think that's Melissa's point. Lindsay?
I think especially at this age, but really any age, they're craving acceptance and a place that they fit in. And so if we don't give them that in the home, they're going to find it somewhere else.
Okay. So they're craving acceptance, to fit in, to belong, and especially at these critical teenage years. And if we're not giving that, if we're not providing that, then they're going to seek it elsewhere, and most likely in places we don't want them to find it, right? Was your hand up, Norm P? Okay, go ahead.
Commendation is generally given after something is done.
Right.
And if we're doing something good, commendation should be given. Because that's what God does. If we do well, He blesses us, He rewards us. And ultimately, if we do well up until the end, and are obedient, we get the ultimate commendation. Yeah. And so, it's the same pattern. We should be teaching our children the same thing. If you do good, you're going to receive this because you're doing good. And that's literally the commendation medals are meant for those who have done something good. It's not something that they just did something. No, they did something good. They did something well. And when that occurs, commendation is important. It's critically important because it's how God rewards us, how we should reward.
Yeah. Okay, appreciate it. Go ahead, Francis.
I have it gives the child a feeling of self-worth, and it bring them up knowing that they're important and that they are a creation, and God is the creator.
Okay, good. Gives them a self-worth, and certainly connecting that self-worth to the most important reason and cause, God and their creator. A lot of children grow up in homes where There's worldliness, there's all kinds of negativity, there's abuse, there's verbal abuse, there's physical abuse, and in some cases, of course, sexual abuse. In the homes of Christians, there ought to be, again, this goes back to early lessons, an atmosphere of love, of kindness and respect and support. Yes, discipline, as we've studied, when is warranted. They need that discipline. They need that training, and that way is also, they need those admonitions, those warnings, and those rebukes when necessary. But also, it doesn't need to be just when they do something wrong or mess up, that's when they hear us speak to them, and it's always getting onto them. And we don't step in and say something when there are good things there that need to be said as well. Jason?
I think that we have to emphasize that for all of us, this is another one that's good for adults too, but our value is in the Lord. Our value is in God. And as the church, everyone has value. We need to be able to explain to our children, we've all been blessed with different talents and abilities. You preach the lesson on the one talent man, so you've got value somewhere. And we have to find, where that is, help them to find that. That's the same with adults. People, all of us as adults, we like to know that, we are valued, and the truth is we are in the Lord. And I agree with what Norm said. It is reliant upon your actions, and it's always been with God. If you do this, then I will protect you, then I will do this, and I will do it. But if you don't, then bad things are going to happen.
Right.
So, yeah, we can't give them false hope, and all of our children, tell them you can be whatever you want to be whenever you grow up. That's not true.
And so their value, as is true of those of us who are older, it's always connected in the Lord and how important that foundational truth is, right? Jeff?
I'll usually put this verse together with a question, but train up a child in the way they should go, and when they're old enough, shall not depart from it. So you couple that with these verses, child's formative years, whatever age category you want to lump under the term children, from birth all the way till, whatever they stop being children, are those formative emotional years. They are learning to set in stone what the way that they think for the rest of their life. So you can talk about commendation being the positive, the wrath being the negative. You're setting them up for failure or success emotionally. Mm-hmm. Those are the formative years. Yeah. And in fact, I think that the Catholics is one of the major religions that talks about if you give me a child until they're 7, they'll be a Catholic for life or something like that. There's a phrase that is tossed around that once they get them set.
Oh yeah, and that applies to all sorts of things, right? Those formative years and how the child is being trained in what way they're being trained to go, right? Okay, appreciate it. Anything else to add? All right. And list some challenges that both the parents and the teenagers face during these years and how parents can help them with these challenges. Any challenges in particular come to mind with the teenage years? Shirley?
I think peer pressure is one of the biggest things for teenagers is the peer pressure that they face. And parents have to reassure them that, you can't go along with the crowd. You've got to be your own person and not to go along with things that's not right just because your friends think it is.
Yeah. Peer pressure is a big one in those years. You think of a 6-year-old peer pressure, don't really think about it. 16, yeah, we definitely do. And the guidance and the training and the involvement we need to have with them to help them with the peer pressure they're going to no doubt face. What were you saying?
It starts young.
Yeah, it starts young.
Before they're teenagers.
Right, yeah. And it's not always the same in every instance. I'm thinking about when I was younger and when I remember really facing peer pressures. It was really during the teenage years for me at least. Norm P?
challenge the teenagers face is the growing independence. The growing and increasing ability they are gaining as they mature to think for themselves, to act for themselves, to reason. Things that they didn't have as a child. They can be clever as a child. They don't understand necessarily the reason. And as their vocabulary increases and they can start putting more complex understanding to their emotions and what they want to talk about, and what they want to involve themselves with, and they start gaining the feeling of I want to be able to do this. The challenge that the parents face then is, where are they in that path? Because that's going on in their minds, and their heads, and their thought process that we're not privy to. And so being able to gauge and judge where they're at, and couple that with where we want them to be, and as a parent, the challenge is learning how to guide them with the expectation that this is where you want them to be, but it may not be where they want to go. And their development of all those things may not be where you think it is. And to me, that's been a challenge, especially since I got two of them that are not quite 2 years apart, and how far one is in one area and how far one is in another area. They're not the same, and yet how each one perceives is growing at the capacity to think for themselves and reason for themselves. That becomes the parent's challenge, especially with multiple kids, and that I can approach the older one, and talk about certain subjects fairly clearly and concisely, and she'll mull it over and start asking questions that make sense because the reasoning is there. But I can't go too far with that because there's a limit to how far she's gone. And if I go too far, I can immediately see where I've lost her. And sometimes as the parent, we can get the expectation of, okay, now they understand this, therefore they're ready to be adults. No, they're in this phase of they need the guidance. They haven't quite got that far yet. They're in the learning stage of all the things that we want them to, they're going to be this. No, not quite. And it's balancing and investigating what you're seeing and how they're growing and what they can understand and take in. And the urgency that, because, I mean, my oldest could be 16, the clock's ticking, and I can feel it. I'm sure those with, 17 and 18-year-olds, they're really feeling a crunch, because that's getting close to the time where full independence is going to hit. They're just going to go off on their own, regardless of what I say. And that time period is going to be over. But I can't rush a 15-year-old, 16-year-old towards things. I was like, well, she's not quite getting this. Why isn't she getting this yet? And coupling patience and battling that dichotomy of there's urgency yet there's patience that's needed because of how fast they're growing and their understanding and reasoning. I think that's the greatest challenge I've run across so far with teenagers is that balancing act. Because as a parent, as a very intelligent kid myself, when I was their age, I can't put that standard on them. They're not me. And at the same time, I can't just back off either, because somebody's got to be there there's got to be guidance. And that's I think the parents' challenge. It's got to be guidance at this point.
Okay. So one of the great challenges that Norm's touching upon there is the growing independence. And that's a key part of that age. They begin to want to be, and they feel like they should be more independent, and yet there's still a great immaturity there that they don't see in themselves, and we didn't see, I'm sure, in ourselves when we were their age. And they need that loving and firm, at times, guidance on how to go, where to go. But that independence, that's a challenge, right? Okay. Go ahead, Clarissa.
There's obviously physical changes that are going on and things you got to work through with the kids. So that could be not a big deal, or it could be a big deal. It just depends on the kid, I guess. And then there's just relationship changes, friends, like how they even look at boys and girls now, It's just, things become a little more complex, a little more, it's not just your buddy in elementary school. There's things that the parent and the teenagers have to, if it's your first, it's something you have to learn how we want to handle this or handle that, which I'm not saying we're even there yet, but that's something that changes, that the teenagers and parents have to work through together. It's a challenge.
Okay, so there's going to be changes with their body in those years that may or may not present some unique challenges. There's probably more interest in boys and girls and the dating perhaps starting, or that interest in that starting in the teenage years. And so, again, that can present its own set of unique challenges in how we help them with that and deal with those things. Francis?
When they're at a set age, preteen, 14 maybe, that they're outgrowing everything that they knew that was their entertainment, that was their way of connecting with people, but they're not old enough to face the problems that's out there because they haven't had the experience. So this is where the parents need to be a good example, and this is where the children should be taught that God will never leave them. They have an issue, they can always go to God in prayer. They may not get what they want, and they need to know that God knows what's best for them. And so I know by my own experience, when we were discussing things about as they got older, I told Ben, I said, we read the story of the prodigal son, and book, chapter, and verse, for the verse says, and when he came to his senses. And I told him, I said, when you think that you want what you want, and you're going to take what you want, always remember that you can always go to God in prayer, ask for forgiveness, and come back, because you left him. He didn't leave you. And always remember, he came to his senses. So it is possible. You just need to know that when that happens, and it has, that the tie is cut because he cut it.
Right.
And hopefully he will remember all those conversations and know that he can always come back.
Right. So from the beginning, always point them to God. God has the answers. God's word has the answers. Of course, we want them to always feel like they can talk to us as well, but they can always open up to their Heavenly Father. And if they depart, as you mentioned with Luke 15, the prodigal son, obviously they have to come to themselves, but they can always come home. And of course, we want them to when they, very, very much so when they do depart, if they depart. Jason?
Just thinking about it from a coach's perspective, you try to prepare your team for all different scenarios. You want to be preparatory, not reactionary. And it's no different with, in my opinion, from a parent to a child. You don't wait until certain things happen and then all of a sudden you start trying to discuss it. We know as adults these things are coming. And so you talk to your children about these things. You talk to them about the changes that are going to be taking place in their body. The attraction that now they might start having between different boys and girls. But this is natural. This is the way God intended things to be. And so we can help them be prepared when these things happen. And to me, having that openness, then when it does start happening, they're going to feel more comfortable coming and talking to you about these things as opposed to, well, I never heard anything about this. I'm having these feelings. I don't really know what to do with that. And they go talk to somebody else. So prepare them. Don't react to it.
Okay. Yeah. Preparation. Big, huge. Marissa?
Self-esteem and identity are also issues the teenagers face, and like Jason said, that's not something that you can suddenly imbue them with as a teenager. Those are things you have to start off early. They have to be confident in who they are and confident in being different and strong in their identity as a Christian or as someone who may soon become a Christian.
Yes. Okay, well said. Appreciate all the good comments. I want to share some points to our answer to our question from Donnie Rader's lesson. is in that workbook, but most of you were given God's plan for parenting, the challenges of the teen years. The first one he lists is obeying the gospel. Every Christian wants his or her children to obey the gospel. However, we want them to obey from the heart, Romans 6:17, and not merely go through the motion. It may be necessary to help guide the child in determining whether he has reached the point of accountability. It is important that we encourage the child to obey without pushing him to do so. Second challenge he mentions of the teen years, and this is what Shirley touched upon, peer pressure / friends. Many teens are led astray because they got in the wrong crowd. Pressure increases when one is outnumbered. Exodus 23, verses 2 and 33. Wise parents not only carefully watch who their children associate with, but also teach their children about choosing friends wisely. Now, this is something we're going to spend a lot more time in the final lesson, so we'll do that then. Number 3, dress or clothing. In the years when boys and girls begin to take note of one another, it is particularly important that young people dress modestly, showing a sense of shame and good judgment. 1 Timothy 2, 9 and 10. When everyone around them, including some Christians, dress according to the standards of the world, proper dress becomes a challenge. Number 4, dating. From an early age, children should be taught the importance of dating and marrying a faithful Christian. Teenagers must understand that dating often leads to falling in love, and that leads to marriage. Continuing to date a person you would not want to marry is dangerous. The challenge of maintaining moral purity is met when dating begins. Abstinence as the only safe sex should be indoctrinated in the children long before dating. 1 Thessalonians 4:3, 1 Corinthians 6:18. Again, we'll touch on some of those things more specifically in our next and final lesson. Number 5, he mentions another challenge of the teen years is entertainment. Many of the things that entertain young people, TV, music, movies, and the internet, pose dangers for our teens. Careful parents are well aware that such can corrupt the good morals of their children. 1 Corinthians 15:33. It is possible to see and hear so much that we become desensitized to sin. Of course, that applies to those of us who are older as well. Number 6, another challenge of the teen years, dancing, the prom. Early teaching about dancing and the prom may prevent teens from asking if they can go to the prom in the high school years. Parents have decisions to make about whether they will let their sons and daughters go. A careful study of lasciviousness in Galatians 5:19 through 21 will help in making that decision. Thayer defines it as, quote, unchaste handling of males and females. And number 7, challenges of the teen years. Brother Donnie Rader lists in this lesson, college. When the time comes to decide where the child will attend college, several questions should be asked. What will they be taught? Is there a strong church in that community? Will this school or the church they must attend there weaken their faith? This reminds me of the email that we received from Jeb's father, Ben Holt, who attended Jere Whitson when he was in college. But it was very thorough in asking a lot of questions about the congregation here and what is taught and what his son would receive. And that's just parents doing their due diligence that they want their child, as they're away from home, hopefully to be in a place that's going to help and strengthen their faith in Christ. And so we were impressed with Ben's parents wanting to do that on his behalf, but that's the point that Donnie's making here about college and the challenge of the teen years there. All right, that was his list, and many of the things you said were in addition to that, and all were good and helpful and important, I believe. So I appreciate very much you all and your contributions as well. All right, anything else before we move on to the next chart? I didn't say next lesson, next chart. Okay. All right, 10 things I want my kids to know. This is from Wilson Adams' workbook, Co-Parenting with God, on pages 57 through 59. I'm going to put them all up here, and then I'm going to go back and his workbook and read some of the material that goes with these points. They are a special creation of God. They are loved unconditionally. Important things can't be bought. Choices have consequences. There is right and wrong. Courage is a must. Human life is sacred. Hard work is worth it. Marriage is for life. God comes first in everything. It's a pretty good list. So they are a special creation of God. Everything that I hope to teach them rests on this foundational fact. God is. God created the world. God created them just the way they are. Like the t-shirt message carried by one little boy, God made me and he don't make no junk. It's bad English, but a great message. Our children will suffer through defeats and disappointments in life. There will be time when others will doubt them and they will even doubt themselves. But one thing will see them through the hard times, the knowledge that God loves them, and they must learn that in their home. They are loved unconditionally. The great tragedy of our time is that many children feel unloved. They grow up in a daycare world, are babysat by the TV, and left to make it on their own, and many don't. Kids deserve the gift of parents who will make them feel important, cherished, and loved. We can show them our love in many ways, but the best has never been improved upon. Tell them, and tell them again and again. Children need to know that they are loved no matter what happens, if they hit a home run to win the game or strike out with the bases loaded, if they win the school election or if they lose, if they have A's and B's or C's and D's, they will always come home to a house of unconditional love. And little things like a hug, a note in their backpack, or a nighttime ritual, such simple expressions of parental love bring calm to their world. Important things can't be bought. It's a hard lesson to learn in a culture where many are infected with affluenza, a sickness that turns the good life into the goods life. Materialism has taken over. It's no good today unless we have the best and biggest. Don't you think that influences our kids? Perhaps it is best summarized by the bumper sticker that says, "The one who dies with the most toys wins." Always want to ask, what? What do I win? What did Job say? Something about that in chapter 1 in verse 21. The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away, but blessed be the name of the Lord. Your kids don't have to have everything. In fact, they could probably do with less of stuff and more of you. If you want to raise lazy, selfish, ungrateful children, give them everything they want. Sure, some kids live below the poverty line, but just as desperate are the scores of kids that end up poor in spirit because they are led to believe that money and things are the key to happiness. Luke 12:15, Jesus said, "Take heed and beware of covetousness, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of the things he possesses." Fast fact, most of the kids involved in school shootings come from upper-class neighborhoods. Why do you think that is? And help your children gain an appreciation for the handiwork of God. Yes, take them to Disney World, that's okay. But also take them out into God's world. Go whitewater rafting, fishing, hiking, etc. There's so much more for them to see that's free of charge. And while you're seeing it, you'll have plenty of time to talk. Now, there's an idea. Choices have consequences. A child that plays on the computer when he needs to study for a history test will suffer the consequence of a low grade. But there are much worse consequences. A child that comes to become sexually active or experiment with alcohol will suffer worse. Much of today's education focuses on exploring all their choices instead of helping them make the right ones. Then again, that's your job as a parent. Number 5, there is right and wrong. Our world may preach moral relativism and toleration of evil, but it doesn't change the fact that some things are right while other things are wrong. It's been said that what Moses brought down from the mountain was not the 10 suggestions. Ephesians 6:1-3 and 1 Peter 3:17 reinforce this truth. Courage is a must. Peer pressure is an awesome force. But Dad, everyone is doing it, wearing it, seeing it, buying it, must be met with a loving reminder that says we are not everyone's parents. We are your parents. They may not understand the rules you make, but they must understand this: you have a right to make them. so make them. It's essential that our kids learn to stand for what is right, even if they have to stand alone, like Joseph or Daniel. Help them to be 412 kids. And when he says 412 kids, he refers to 1 Timothy chapter 4 and verse 12. Let no one despise your youth, but be an example to the believers in word and conduct and love and spirit and faith in purity. Human life is sacred. Isn't that what Jesus tried to tell us when he interacted with all the wrong, in quotes, people? Samaritan woman, Zacchaeus, the children, etc. Human life is a holy gift from a holy God. Treat others as such. Matthew 7, verse 12, the Golden Rule passage. Hard work is worth it. Colossians 3, 22 through 24 should be required reading before every teenager gets their first job. Colossians 3, 22 through 24. Bondservants, obey in all things your masters according to the flesh, not with eye service, as men pleasers, but in sincerity of heart, fearing God. And whatever you do, do it heartily as to the Lord and not to men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the reward of the inheritance, for you serve the Lord Christ. Marriage is for life. Romans chapter 7, verse 2. They must know that God takes the marriage vows seriously, which means it is essential that we set the right example before them. Genesis 2:24. We must also teach them to marry someone who will help them get to heaven. And then finally, God comes first in everything. Ecclesiastes chapter 12, 13, and 14. The conclusion, when all has been heard, is God comes first, period. All right. Well, I thought that was good, so I wanted to share it with you. Appreciate Brother Donnie and Brother Wilson's help with those points. All right. That's all I have in this lesson. Anyone else as we wrap up Lesson 9, Guiding Teenagers in the Ways of God? Okay. May God help us with that, right? May God help each one of us in doing that. All right, Lesson 10, which is our final lesson. And yes, that's why I needed 2 quarters, but hopefully we'll get through Lesson 10 before the year ends. I will miss one of the classes, which will be next Wednesday, as we'll be away with family over the holidays. So we'll see where I get so I can tell the fill-in teacher where to pick up at tonight or next week. All right, guiding our children to choose the right companions. Does anyone need a copy of that lesson? If you do, raise your hand. And I should have said that for the previous one, but we have plenty of copies if you need it. And everyone can be turning in their Bibles back to the Old Testament book of Proverbs, please. Proverbs chapter 12. Anyone else need a lesson? Okay, thank you, Jason. So why does it matter who our children choose as their friends? And there's a common theme, and really, I think in all these scriptures listed up on the screen and on your lesson sheet that we can sum up. But, and here's the summary: because their choice of companions is going to influence them for good or for evil. Okay, that's the bottom line, I think, of these scriptures. So Proverbs 12:26, what's the admonition there? And I know it reads a little bit differently depending on your translation. But the New King James Version reads, the righteous should choose his friends carefully. And I think this last part, I think pretty much all the Bible translations read similar. For the way of the wicked leads them astray. Okay. What we take from that? What stands out to you about that verse?
Get you to heaven. Help you get there.
Okay. Who can be influenced by evil? What kind of young people? What kind of anybody? Okay. But my Bible says the righteous need to choose their friends carefully. The righteous. You mean righteous people can be influenced by unrighteous people to then do things that are unrighteous? Yeah. That's what this passage and all the rest of them that follow are warning us about. That you can have a good kid that you've been training up in the way they should go, and they can get off track because of the people that they hang out with, their friends, their peers, their companions. And so this is a very, very important lesson that we're concluding on as we talk about friends, as we talk about dating, as we talk about marriage. All this connects to this last lesson that we're focused on. But that's what really stands out to me. The righteous need to choose their friends carefully. It's not just anybody and everybody, but even people that are godly. We have to be very careful. Why? The way of the wicked leads them astray. Okay, Jason?
You had the lesson on being an influencer. The truth is we all have the ability to influence, but we also have the ability to be influenced. And so don't deceive yourself, especially as children. We have to explain to them, look, we talk about kids being impressionable. Everybody can be influenced. And so you have to make sure that the influence that you surround yourself with is something that is going to help you. So yes, be an influencer, but also don't be wrongly influenced.
Right. And, we can go to extremes in talking about this. There is a balance, but again, especially with young people and impressionable kids, I think there has to be even more caution about who are their friends, who they're hanging out with. You say, well, Jesus, he spent time with sinners. And yes, he did. In fact, he was ridiculed and criticized and attacked for that. But why did he spend time with the sinners? Now, the Pharisees and the scribes would say, well, they complained he received sinners. Basically, the old expression, birds of a feather flock together. So, he's just wanting to be with them to do the things that sinners do. But, of course, he spent time with them to influence them for good. I think I heard someone say he came to seek and save that which is lost. So who's having the influence? And this was Jason's going back to the recent lesson about being an influencer. Are we influencing our friends towards godliness, or are we the ones being influenced away from godliness? And that's the thing that Proverbs 12:26 says. You better be careful, because even though you may be righteous, you're not going to stay that way if you're hanging around those who are wicked, worldly, okay? Again, it's not that I never had non-Christian friends. I did, and those were always the greater challenges, is when I was around those friends who were not godly-minded because of the things that they wanted to do. But those better not be, and they weren't, and they better not be for our children, our closest companions. Yeah, they're still my friend, but that's not who I'm going to go out and hang out with unless I see them changing and I'm influencing them towards God and the ways of God, right? Okay. Other thoughts or comments? Okay. Proverbs 13, verse 20. Proverbs 13, verse 20. Gil, you got that?
He who walks with wise men will be wise, but the companion of fools will be destroyed.
Again, does it matter who we hang out with, associate with? The Bible says yes again. If we want to be wise, be around wise people. But if you hang out with fools, guess what? You're going to do foolish things, right? You're going to do D-U-M-B things. And it's not very difficult or challenging for young people to do foolish things, and especially when they're around other young people who are out doing foolish things. Don't be a companion of those kind of people, and that's where you'll end up. And lots of times in a world of trouble and hurt as well. Whether that's drugs and alcohol or sexual impurity or whatever it may be, the companion of fools will be destroyed, the Bible says. All right, that's all the time we have. 7:45. We'll pick up there with letters C and the rest of these next week, or at least my fill-in will, with those who will be here. And we got 2 weeks to do it. Surely we can do it, right? Pressure's on my fill-in as well to get a little further.